Can you believe it? Can you believe it? I'm already back. Hopefully, full chain animation. If you're out there somewhere in YouTube land, hopefully you'll show up. Well, enough philosophy. Time to just get to work. Okay? That's what we're going to do. Working on this shot. We are working in Krita. I strongly feel probably the next shot will be done in Blender 2.81. But yeah, I mean, this is looking good, and we need to get some lip sync on there, and then we'll go ahead and go to the next shot. The next shot's going to be fun, because we're going to do a fix on this shot here. So Mel makes the comment that we're animating right now. Asher has a response, and then this is the legacy shot where the characterization's a little off. I want to fix it up. I actually like the exaggerated cartoony feeling of it is pretty good. As I'm looking at it, I'm thinking maybe this can be fixed with some deformation work. But I don't know. I guess it would be good if it could, because we've got actually 3 shots here. So I'm going to have to look at where those came from. They're probably Krita shots, but I don't know. But you can see the characterization here looks a little different, and this is definitely more accurate to what I feel my character, Melchizedek, is. So, rock and roll, baby. We will call this layer Memo-UTH. Talking about leverage earlier, I will say that there's generally no reason to try to get leverage when it comes to mouths, for the simple reason that they are so quick and easy to do. So let's actually hit the B key, and okay, so he's moving. Alright, so we'll just hit the A. And then I guess here, let's hit insert and hit the G key. Now we're going to want this to be partially transparent so that we get the, there we go, that's about perfect. Okay, now we have to move it. We're using the same phoneme. We're doing anime style lip sync, meaning there are no real phonemes actually. There's just open mouth, more open mouth, and almost closed mouth. That's pretty much what we have. Okay, so he says, let me look at what he says. He says, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, sure. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Insert B key. Alright, G key. Probably for lip sync, this is where we probably should switch to auto key blank. So when I draw, it's going to go ahead and create a blank frame. Well, notably, oh, it's in behind? Oh, you silly goose. And, okay, so notably this does not work. Theoretically it works. In actuality, it doesn't at all. Fancy that from Krita, huh? I'm sorry, Asher. Okay. Okay, so here he's going to say, it's just that. It's boom. Okay, A key. We want 2 frames of this. And then I think we'll draw over this a little bit bigger mouth shape here. And then insert, boom, B key. We need to put some eye blinks in, by the way. Hey, Amar. Library of those shapes, you really don't. Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, with phonemes, I don't mind. I mean, you could, I don't know if it would save you any time to import them, and and then you've got, well, think about what you actually would have to do. If you import them, you're then going to have to resize them, possibly reverse them, yada yada yada. So I don't know, man. I think for mouth shapes, doing it anime style. And by the way, I have to say, in this pre-alpha version of Krita, I'm really glad they fixed the screen reversal. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. It's just that, well, I do like this, the acting. I think what I'll do is here, I'll just go ahead and insert a frame in. Okay, so now we're going to have to draw some shapes. Yeah, I mean, if you think about, in other words, this is where the sweet spot between just doing everything from scratch versus reuse becomes, bold relief for me, which is that if you were trying to use a library of shapes, certainly it would turn out that everything you have to do to reuse them would, I'm really sure, I could be wrong, okay, but I'm really sure would turn out to be more work than just doing what I'm doing here. This is the exception to the rule, you might say. Insert. And I think this will be closed shape, almost closed shape, and then we'll go for and I think what we'll do is we'll angle this down. But yeah, I'm just back because I sort of did what I wanted to do. And by the way, look what we see here. We're definitely seeing maybe some pre-alpha bugaboos. So, unfortunately, well, let's just say just another reason why I'm probably going to wind up anchoring back into Blender 2.81. Because, it's a little, it fills me with dismay to a degree. The fact that what you're seeing right here, I mean, think about what would have to happen in order for what we're seeing here to happen. In other words, you can see that at some point, and I don't know where it happened because I was zoomed in, but basically what happened was when I rotated the mouth, the image buffer that includes the background got edited / image, even though this layer was selected. Okay, now when you think about what would actually have to be true in the code in order for such an error like that to even be remotely possible, oh my goodness, you're going, wow, you're dealing with spaghetti code. There is no doubt. Now this is pretty easy to fix. Why? Well, if we go to our background, well, it might be not as easy to fix as I thought, because actually, let's hit Control A. For the simple reason that it looks like there are no animation keyframes on the background. So I can kind of see what happened. You've got a selection that's select all, and when I selected and manipulated the mouth layer, it treated the selection as if it included a layer that it really wasn't supposed to. So what do we do about that? Well, let's try a couple things here. I'm going to save as, this is 136. I'm going to call this 136 temp. Now, this is just me in the real world dealing with practical problem solving. Okay, now I should be able to load 136. And what I'm hoping is that the background will be, the background's fouled up there too. So it must have happened really early. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, I'll tell you what the fix is. The fix is easy. Let me first save this as 136. Let's take the temp off. We'll just save it. We're going to fix the background. That's what we're going to do. Boom, 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 boom. Save that. Yep, we'll commit to it. Okay, so how do we fix it? Well, let's just go in and paint. Hit the B key. Boom, 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 boom. Let's grab our kind of oil paint type brush, and let's just fix it. We're just going to do it. Boom, 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 boom. Need a little bit of a shadow color. Boom, right there. Alright, and then I think we'll just go ahead and assume that if we extend this, it's probably not going to cause too many complaints. By the way, see, I love this oil paint brush, but the one area where it kind of falters, and this is not a criticism of Krita, just so you know, this is another rant, has to do with when you get near the edges, and it's because of the smudging characteristic of the brush. The one thing you don't really want to do with the oil paint brush is anything along the edge, because you can see what it does is it's pulling the alpha in from the edge. So anyway, there we go. Problem solved. Solved. Oh, and Goswami, tell you what, dude. I asked this question in your first stream, but you don't. You did. I answered the question. Goswami, you weren't paying attention. You were off going to the bathroom when I answered the question. So I'm actually, I must say, I'm tempted to not answer the question just to torture you. Just for fun. Just to be mean. I may not answer the question. Because I did answer the question. I answered it very specifically. No, I'll answer your silly question. The answer to your question is Blender, because I've been using Blender for 20 years, so therefore you don't have to think too hard to sort of ferret out that it must be my favorite. So there you go. Oops, wrong color there, Jack. So I'm going to put a vignette on this scene like that, and then I'm going to switch it to overlay mode, and then whoops, way turn it down. So that punches up. It not only darkens things, but it punches up the saturation as well. I love overlay mode. So one of the reasons I like Blender 2.81 is because Blender 2.81 in the grease pencil, you can have overlay mode layers. And once you get up into version 2.9, they took overlay out. Now you can emulate it. You can combine additive and multiply and different. You can combine different blending modes and get the look more or less. Okay, so what we probably need to do here, unfortunately, to my great chagrin, let me see what this is. Yeah, that's our pencil test. Let's get rid of it. Okay, I'm going to have to add a utility layer, unfortunately. I really don't wanna, but I'm gonna. Okay, so this is, we'll call this hair fix. We'll call it hair fix. And by the way, the reason I'm back on live streaming is when I broke earlier, I went and had to pull my stove out because the guys are going to be here tomorrow to install a new furnace, and I talked them into giving me a freebie of running the gas line to the kitchen, which will have to be run through the crawl space. But if they run the gas line to the kitchen, then we can ditch the electric stove and put in a gas stove, you know. So, but in order for them to be able to do what they got to do, I needed to pull the stove out. It was quite a happy situation because I thought that the stove was probably bolted to the cabinets. It turns out it wasn't. It was freestanding. And so it was kind of stupidly easy to go ahead and pull the stove out. So hopefully tomorrow we'll have heat again. We do have heat, but it's only because of electric space heaters. So anyway, what I'm going to do here is hit the G key. Actually, I need to make sure I got the right brush. Sample that color, hit the G key, and now what I'm doing is I'm just going to fix his hair. So now what we need to do is see if Krita is going to be really stupid again with the background. Hopefully not, but I'm just going to animate this frame by frame. I'm going to do this the hard way. Why? Well, because it's fun to do it the hard way, people. Come on. So yeah, I got my philosophical musings off my chest this morning, and I'm glad I did. You know, it was some ideas that I felt were worth sharing. Others may disagree. I shouldn't blame them if they disagree. But that's what I wanted to do, and it's my YouTube channel, so if I wanna, I can. So this is a little bit clunky to have to do, but it's not that big of a deal. So if we had to kind of follow up on Amar's comments, if you had the reuse sort of in play that you would expect using your procedural animation tool of choice, which in our case would probably be Blender, then this is where you get a payoff, because what you could do is go into the actual grease pencil object of Mel, fix his hair, and then the whole rest of the animation would just update accordingly, and you know, you get that procedural benefit. Okay, so here what I'm going to do is just flip the darn thing. Flip, 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 and there we go. There we go. It's interesting to me how the transform tool in this pre-alpha version of Krita, it resets. Like if I click this, you notice it resets to, I'm not sure that's a bad thing actually. Okay, oops, got one more key I need to doodle on in there. Okay, save it. I think I'm going to hit Control R because I actually think that I may be done with this shot. I think I might. So, I would concur. I've been using Blender longer outside Adobe products. I would only use full release candidates of the software for big projects like you're working on. Well, if I have to disagree in my Krita experience. Obviously, you would want to test the waters a bit before you go too deep. But honestly, for the pre-alpha version of Krita to be in point of fact quite a bit more reliable than the official versions is totally normal for Krita. Seriously, I'm not joking. It's totally normal. Nothing unusual about this at all. So, it is what it is, man. It's what we're going to do. Alright, so I'm going to save this. And now we're going to retreat into... I better save my work. What is this? This is going to be shot number... let me switch back here. This is going to be shot number 139. 139. And so, I am going to save it as 139. 139, where are you? Uh-oh, there's a 139.blend. That's worth a look. So on my other screen, I'm going to check and see what that is. Anime, Salt and Light, Scenes, 139. It's probably nothing useful, I'm pretty sure. But if it's what I think it might be, I'm going to close this because if this is a Blender 2.79 file, it won't open if 2.81 is open. Okay, this is the old shot, and it looks like, what the heck's going on here? Oh my goodness, so he's actually completely baked into it. This is not useful at all. Therefore, is there even, I don't even know if there's any grease pencil in this shot. Let me turn these guys off. Yeah, it's just little fixes, so forget it. Forget it, Blender, you're out of here. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple minute break, and then when I come back, we're going to get busy on shot number 139. Meantime, we will loop Krita just because there's nothing more exciting than watching animation, and I'll be back in 2 minutes. I'm back. Okay. What are we going to do? Well, let's go out of full screen mode here. Stop that. Jump over. Look at Vegas. I want to look at the other shot. Okay. I have to confess that this is going to require a little bit of strategizing. Yes, yes, yes it is. So I'm pulling up Blender 2.1. Oh, that was not what I intended. I'm kind of glad I wound up where I landed here, because this is actually what I wanted. Let's delete his body. And all we need is this head and face. That's all we need. We're going to reuse it. Yep, that's what we're going to do. Okay, so I'm going to hit the B key box, select, delete everything, B key. What is it that is, oh, the shadow. Yeah, we'll delete the shadow. We'll delete the shadow. We don't need that. We'll leave the layer in, but smack that back up there. Unlock the shadow layer. Hit the B key. Take all these keys. Whoops. Hit the A key so that, well, actually Alt A. So nothing selected. Box select the whole kit and caboodle. And then go into the face layer. Hitting Tab to go into edit mode. L key to select linked. X key to delete the strokes. Same thing. You don't actually have to select link. If you select the strokes, it'll just get rid of them. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to save this as 139. Boom. And then we can get busy. What I'm looking at the prior shot, and to be honest, I probably can reuse everything except his face. So, what the heck? Let's give it a crack. Save that. Okay, I just saved over it, so now there's no getting back. And now what we would want to do here is a little tricky, because I want to bring the prior shot in as a background image. Well, not really a background image. I actually want to go into edit mode or object mode and images as planes. Now the disadvantage here we don't have. Ah, it looks like I already made a render copy. That's useful. Okay, let me look at what I've got here in the I'm going to pull up my image viewer and kind of see what I'm working with here. 139. So we've got this sequence, and then we've got this sequence, and they are identical. So that means that what I was thinking about doing, I must have been thinking about before. Well, when you're doing as much as I'm doing, you forget what you did. So smack that out of the way. We're going to grab this. We're going to hit the A key to select all. And we do want to animate the image sequences. We want to use the emit shader and auto refresh. Everything looks good. Okay, that's interesting. Well, okay. We'll go with it. Size this baby up. S key to size it up. And then what I'm going to do is size it up a little bigger than it needs to be. You can see that the proportional editing's on, so that's a little dangerous. Yeah, because it's sucking the Melchizedek layer along with it, which is not what we want. So let's turn off proportional editing. And then let's GY means let's go in the Y axis. And now if we scale this up a little more, we can get it positioned and it becomes the basis for the shot. And if we put it in render mode, we can see that that's kind of sort of worked. And now since we're in object mode, we can scale the grease pencil object down to a more appropriate size, and I'm going to SX-1. So I'm effectively flipping the grease pencil object on the x-axis. I'm going to size it up just a little more. And probably, gosh, you know what we really should do? I don't know my hotkeys on this, but I think it's Shift S. I want to, no, that's not the centering. So I want to go Object, Set Origin to the 3D cursor. Now if I rotate it, as you can see, it rotates correctly. G key. Okay, so what I was kind of saying but didn't finish saying is that I may have to clean out a bit of like legacy hair and stuff from the prior version of it. Okay, so I'm going to take one moment here and look at the wait a minute. Oh, I see. Okay. It should be its own background layer. Appears to be a single image. I would concur images. How are you organizing these shots with a shot sheet or using the storyboard? Everything in the show is based on the storyboard. And by the way, for the record, I am not going to modify the skin color here to make it match at the moment. Don't really care about that. We'll deal with that later. Yeah, everything was done as a storyboard, and then the animated shots were done, and so every shot in the project's scenes folder has a subfolder based on the number of the shot. So this is in folder 139, and if there's any assets, basically your tunes files, your TNZ files, and your CRETA files, the KRA files, are all in the root of the scenes folder. If there's a Blender file, it's going to be in the specific scene number folder, because I haven't been, using Blender across the board as much as I've been using CRETA and OpenTunes on this thing. So, all right. Little decision to make here. I'm gonna say, let's take, this is one of those shots that I'm totally gonna make this up as I go along, for the simple reason that we're not gonna get mega reuse out of this, but we may be able to get a fair amount. But this is all about the acting. So I'm going to hit the, the D key to draw, and I'm going to stop everything. Yes, we really don't want, well, wait a minute. We want additive drawing turned on right now. And what is it? Use additive drawing. So in the, I see. Right, I forgot. Well, that's useful. Okay. Okay, so this actually underscores where the sort of tug of war between reuse and just keeping it loose and fluid and just moving forward kind of bump into each other a little bit, because in this case we really have we've got the face separated from the head, so there's a lot of it we can animate just by messing with his face, but we also have translation animation going with the head where it's going to be flipped. So stay with me, people, this will all make sense. Okay, the first thing I'm actually going to do here is go back to the face layer. I'm going to draw in behind mode, or draw strokes on back, so that I can actually fix this right now. Because now that's going to be fixed throughout the shot. Actually, I shouldn't have done that quite so aggressively. I'm going to do it like that. And then we'll see how it works out. Okay, so that's baked in, so when we go to the next frame, boom, it's that changes already there. Okay, charcoal ink. And what we're going to do now is we're not going to draw strokes on back. Whoa. I turned off additive instead of draw strokes on back. My bad. I think I want to use my pencil too, by the way, not my pen. Oh, come on. Okay, stop everything. This is one of those moments where you stop everything. Just stop. Okay? Get your bearings. This is the head layer. We need to be in the face layer. We do not want to draw strokes on back, but we do want to be in additive drawing mode. Okay. If I hit the 1 key, okay, that's definitely going to confuse things a bit, but that's okay. Control Shift. Yeah, and this is another thing I need to address in Blender 2.81. In 2.79, if I go to front view, I can hit Control Shift and roll my mouse wheel and rotate the canvas. In 2.81, I can't, and at this moment, I have no idea how to make that work. So I'm not going to sit here and fight with it in real time. I'm more interested in just getting a bit of work done. So that's my choice. Okay, on my other screen, I'm going to take a look at the... is this? Yeah, that includes his eyebrows, so that's good. All right. And, well, that's not what I intended to do. Wait a second. Okay, stop everything again. You know, really getting reacquainted with Blender 8.1 here, so I'm going to make mistakes. That's okay. I don't care. I'm going to suffer through the mistakes. Doesn't matter, because I'm going to be a lot better off after I've gotten through the mistakes. So even though it's not fun to make a bunch of mistakes, it's worth it. So to heck with it. Okay. So now, being in the face layer, what's wrong here? What's going wrong? Well, what's going wrong is I need to have this on. Auto lock inactive layers. Now, I can just hit my E key and start sculpting. And wango bango. Get the result without damaging the head layer. Okay, so this is what we had in the earlier shot. Something pretty much like that. Let me zoom out a bit. I'm going to say, let's move these guys over a bit. B key. I'm sorry, not the B key, the D key. So I will say too that my my pressure sensitivity does not, it doesn't feel quite right. So did you try Control Alt middle mouse? Let me see. No, I don't think I did. But we can try it. Control Alt doesn't. I think I tried all the combinations actually yesterday, and what I found out is yeah, I tried all the combinations, and I found out that in Blender 2.81 at least, nothing got me to that result. Okay, so now for shot matching, you know, the reality is that really I should, I'm going to save this. I actually should come back to this. And here, I'm going to take the Murphy is with me. Okay. It's going to turn out that fixing, okay, I better show this. Since in Krita, the head and the neck are on two separate layers, so it's going to be a royal pain to make a color adjustment here. So this is where, you know, you just do it in the editor. Do a secondary color corrector. Let's select the flesh tone. That's pretty darn close to what we want. We could maybe dial it in based on saturation. There we go. Smooth that a little bit. Okay, so now what we can do is we can do a hue rotation, and we can rotate his skin color around to be a little more yellow, and or Yeah, that's a little closer to what we have in the other shot. Okay, might be a little extreme on the gamma change there, but that's what secondary color correctors do for you. It's wonderful. Quite a useful tool. Okay, so having done that, where do we go from here? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take the head layer. Well, actually, we're going to take the skin. And let me see here. We really don't need this to have a stroke, do we? And we're going to use the eyedropper to grab that color. Okay. I'm going to lighten it just a smidgen. Or you could say, well, let's sample this color on his arm. I want to pretty much get the lightest color that is in the shot. That looks like we're okay. Once the shadows are in there, that'll look pretty good. Okay, so now what does Mel do is the question. He's kind of frozen for, wow, 17 frames. Now, why does that show 7? Oh, well, okay, I'm sorry. It's at 24 frames per second on the video timeline, so that means at 8 frames a second, essentially divide by 3, which makes sense. 6 frames is really what we're talking about. So, 6 frames, and then when we get here, like I said, our opportunity for reuse is pretty much out the window. So, unless we try to do some acting using the, using the, just use a little bit different framing and stuff. So let me just look at this for a half second. Okay, I'm going to take, I need to put a hotkey on auto lock and active layers. But what I'm going to do first thing I'm going to do here is this. Okay, yeah, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to move this. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to do a little pop, okay? So I'm going to duplicate this right there. The frames are not isolated, so that means I can go ahead and do some sculpting. So I'm just going to hit the E key. And this is a one framer, so that means we got a lot of latitude. We can exaggerate it and have fun with it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We'll just delete the keyframe. No big deal. So at this point, since we've got this frame in there, I'm going to delete these. There's no reason to keep those around. And we'll just drag this back a frame so that I find that a little strange that the start is 1, but yet it doesn't stop it at 1, but it does stop it at 0. Back in the old days with Blender, you could just go back into negative frames, So, anyway. Yeah, that worked. Ba-doom. Now the question becomes, can we go 3/4 here? That's the question. So I'm going to go into edit mode, tab key, hit A, and I'm going to go scale X minus 1. Rotate that a bit. And if we were to direct his eyes toward Asher, would this work? I think it would. So now I'm going to hit Alt A. And actually, might as well make that fit. Okay. So now we've got all this acting involved. Can we make this play? without doing complete redraws. We probably are going to have to do complete redraws, frankly. That's okay. You know, in this shot, I really don't care. I'm just more interested in, can we make it work? So if it goes kind of, whoa, that's not what I intended to do. If the process goes a little bit sideways, I'm really not going to worry about it. So let's make this big and see if we can animate this in a frenetic way that will actually wind up working. We'll just try. It's a little crazy, you know, but that's kind of what's supposed to be happening in this scene. Is it's supposed to be a real frenetic reaction, a moment of self-awareness where Mel is embarrassed because he mentioned this girl that he saw. And now I'm going to go, I think what I'm going to do actually is go into edit mode. I'm going to do my flip here. This will be interesting to see if it works. Okay, so now what we would want to do is, what is this? That's the shadow layer. We don't need to, we can ignore that. Okay, so I'm going to take this, smack that back there, and then rotate it a bit and scale this on the Z. Let's just see. It probably isn't going to work, but it's worth a try. It actually worked. Okay, except what I want to do now, okay, this is where it's going to get a little more fun. Okay, Alt-A. I'm going to go scale this on the, okay, hold on. Probably don't want proportional editing on. Okay, so I'm going to scale this. Okay, hello. I guess I needed to hit that twice. Size that down a bit. E key. Sorry, I guess I got to hit draw and then hit the E key. Sorry, I'm inadvertently using my Krita hotkeys that I've gotten so used to. Yeah, the hotkeys are a little different in Blender. Alright, let's take this one step at a time. Okay, let's see if we can use sculpting. I guess there really is not a grow mode, so in that case what we'll do is we'll hit the edit. I want to be on the median point. Size that up, and now I want to go in here, and what we're going to do is grab these strokes, hit the X key and delete the strokes. I almost got it. There we go. Same thing here. I'm just going to select these and then hit L for select link so we can completely get rid of them. This one, hard to say, but that's alright. We'll go through and we'll redraw them. Face, B key, what color are we on? We need to be on that. I'm sorry, I keep saying B key when I mean D. Again, it's one of those hotkey changes. We'll see if this works. I don't know if this is going to work, frankly, but I'm going to try. Alt A, grab these guys, L key, select link, delete them. Now we can go back to our charcoal ink, D key for the draw mode. And we're just gonna, as I say, keep it kind of frenetic. And since this is all going by one frame at a time, it may not work. There may be too much packed into too small of an area, which, if that's the case, it'll probably just be a matter of editing the keyframes. So I'm going to go ahead and do a tiny little sculpt operation here if I can pull this off. Squish those guys up there and squish those guys down a bit. This would be a really good candidate for the noise modifier, actually, now that I think about it. Ooh, that did not work. Right there's where it got lost. Let me see. Okay, yeah, so let me keep playing with this. If you're sitting there feeling horrified, don't give up on me yet here, because there, I'm gonna say draw, erase. Okay. Well, I erase into the shadow layer inadvertently. Like I said, we'll see if it works. I suspect it's going to. See, this would, one thing you could do here too. We'll see. Let me try this. You could actually go like this. We'll see if it works. I don't think it will. The idea of his eyes darting. No, not so much. So, as I said, don't be too horrified. We're going to keep playing with this. So this is too much in too small of a space. So I'm going to hit the B key and let, oh, come on. Really, dude? Why is it doing that? Is it because of, I mean, proportional editing shouldn't have any effect. Why is it grabbing everything? Okay, now this is, now Blender is acting like Krita. If I grab a single keyframe, why would it grab the whole row? Okay, this is quite literally behavior in Blender I've never seen in 20 years. Never seen this happen. I'm thinking, okay, is it because proportional editing's turned on? Because you do see it. Yeah, it looks like it might be. Okay. Okay, so proportional editing is active even in the dope sheet, apparently. Okay, so I'm going to go up here and hit the O key. Sorry, guys. I might want to save my work. Blender's starting to act a little frenetic here. It's acting like it's in a locked up mode kind of thing. That's a little creepy. You do not see that very often with Blender. At least not in recent years. Okay, here I'm hitting the O key, which again for 20 years invokes or turns on or off the proportional editing tool, and at this moment that does not seem to be working. Hitting the O key does not seem to be doing anything, and you get this locked little icon that I don't even, yeah, this has gone to the point of creepy. I'm going to save my work. I'll save it and reopen Blender. That's a weird one. God. swear. Hard to ever find any workflow that doesn't just have, to be fair, probably guys working with commercial applications deal with this too. You know what I mean? And now the animation keyframes on his face appear to have been lost. So this is a great example of if you did this as a completely pre-baked or fully baked animation where you're just, I think I'm actually glad this happened. This is a really good example of what I was talking about in the talk earlier today. This is exemplary of the tug of war we have between the attempt to achieve reuse versus which requires the structure of our animation tools to begin to become deep. It becomes a deep structure because you've got things that depend on other things that where hopefully changes and whatnot flow up through that structure to the highest level, which is of course the final image. If you did this in the flattest possible way, in other words, there is no structure, you would have a single layer, you'd do a pencil test on that layer, and then all the paint and everything would be in a single layer, and all it is a grid of pixels. So we really do have this constant tug of war between the attempt to reuse assets, and I know I was in, and by the way, Amar, you're correct. When you say you got a bit of Charlie Brown going on in there, that was the intent, just so you know. But this is an interesting conundrum because it underscores something that I have found to be true most of the time. Usually, boy, how do I explain this? Put it this way, if you're going to get the benefit of reuse, which you understand, Amar, because you understand what rigging's about, if you're going to get that benefit, you really kind of need to be all in with it and really fully pay the price up front, because what you find is, like in this case, a good example here is that you're going to draw into this, and as I'm drawing into it, all you're doing effectively is shifting the pixels around, even though they're not pixels. They're obviously a vector format with the grease pencil, but you're effectively changing what's really there by changing the drawing. Whereas if you animate the head by flipping it, now you're taking a single object and you're manipulating it at a higher level. So you're putting modifiers on top of a single thing. And the advantage to that, theoretically, is if you were to change the thing, like change the color of his hair to red, let's say, then that change would propagate through all the animation. When you have a shot like this, where you really have some frenetic acting going on, blah, 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 I mean, look at what we had here. It's really hard to get reuse out of something that's going to be of this nature, right? And I guess the point I'm coming around to is that what I've found is unless you really go all in on the rigging approach, it almost always backfires. Now here it appears to have backfired because of essentially software bugs. Because I know I animated his head because I was playing it back and I saw it animate. And I saved my work after it had been animated. And yet when I reload the project, that animation's gone. Well, what are you going to do? I mean, for a lot of people that would make you just want to tear your hair out and say, well, I'm just going to keep it as flat as possible. I just want to animate, right? I just want to draw, right? That's the way you feel. It's perfectly understandable because animation tools, they really, once you get past that flat drawing, most of them pretty much fall apart, or at least they get buggy. And we saw it here. Live and in living color. So what do? Now I've got a... Okay, so think about what the problem now we're faced with. We've got the animation of his face and his eyes and stuff baked in here. And now, I guess I'll wrap up. I think I'm going to wrap up this session because, hey, Maria. I mean, think about what you're going to try to do here. Think about what you would be trying to do if you're going to make this work. What you really have to do now is sculpt the head in the hope that you can make that work around what's already animated, which of course is his face. So this is what you have to do. Okay, so now the question, and I'm throwing this out there, and you guys may have an opinion about it. The question is, animation-wise, is there any way it's ever going to turn out that this methodology where you're using sculpting tools to make it match something that you drew earlier? How often is it going to turn out that this is going to turn out as well as if you had just said, you know what, forget it, I'm just going to redraw the whole sequence and then just ink and paint the darn thing and that's that? I will bet you... Oh, that's interesting. I just hit the S key. Okay, well that's disturbing. Okay, we have a very strange situation here that I hate to report, but I'm going to report it, and then I'm going to have to end the session. What we just discovered. I have spent, gosh, a couple years going around the block with, sometimes with Blender, certainly with Krita. And what you discover, I've said it here on the channel, but what we just saw it. We just saw it happen live, which is this. As long as I've opened up Blender 2.81 and essentially did really simple draw, ink, paint, you know. In other words, you don't go too deep. Basically, not a problem. Here today, I mean, just think about the implications of this. I might be being overly dramatic, but think about the implications of this. Literally the day that I decided, okay, we're going to take the plunge, we're going to do the deep dive, we're going to start migrating over to Blender 2.81. Think about what I'm seeing happen, my experience right now in real time. Think about what this is like for me. Literally the day I say, we're going to do it, man. We're going Blender 2.81. We'll move to 2.93 later. We might make it to 3. But basically, we're going. We're going to make the commitment. Literally, the day I make that commitment, the very first scene that I worked on in Blender 2.1 did what you guys just saw happen. Think about that. I know I might be able to recover the file. I always recover things. When things go stupid, Max, I mean, you're correct. This is not, in terms of my workflow and moving forward, this is not a tragedy at all. Not at all. This is a very, very tiny, tiny, tiny bump in the road. But I want you guys to fully understand why, when it comes to software, why am I a little bit of a Luddite on the one hand? Why have I clung to Blender 2.79? And, you know, on the other hand, why do I get a little annoyed with bugginess in software? It's literally because of experiences like what you guys just saw happen right here, which has happened to me so many times it boggles my mind. It's almost like a curse. To wit, specifically, this is what happened. The absolute day I decided I'm going to go all in, more or less, with Blender 2.81, we just saw it on the very first shot I worked on. We saw the tool go bizarre. We saw bizarre stuff. I would say at least 2 or 3 things here we've seen that were really, really obviously betrays some bugginess in the software that I've never run into before. Literally, as long as I was kicking at the tires of Blender 2.81, as long as I'm kind of using it once in a while, as long as it's not serious, as long as it doesn't matter, Blender 2.81 works fine. And then some people, you know, are going to come on the chat and say, well, why aren't you using version 3? Yeah, I agree with you, Amar. I think that is a totally legit way to look at it. I've talked about that. When I talk about, I've told you guys this will happen to you. But think about what a coincidence that is. That the very day And the very first scene where I go, come on, we're going to do this Blender 2.81 thing. The very first scene I work on does that. Like, all I did was try to scale the grease pencil strokes, and the software disappears. It just blows up. Is there any freaking doubt in anyone's mind why you might think that I tend to cling to working with tools that are a little out of date? The reality is Blender 2.79 is really stable. Really reliable. Is it limited? Absolutely. But this is not a good experience for me. For me, I'm going, if this is... I don't want to enter into a new relationship with Blender to find that it's the way the relationship with Blender was in 2003. Because believe me, I lived through it. Where every single release was so riddled with, it would fix some things and there's new features, and it was so riddled with new bugs. And then you guys heard me say this in little rants in the past where I talked about when 2.8 was coming, what did I say? I said, guys, I've heard this before. When we were using 2.49 and it was really stable, they did Big Buck Bunny with Blender 2.49. And then, but it was going to be so amazing. 2.5 is going to be so awesome. That was the story. And I said, yeah, we'll see. And the specific selling point that was sold on Blender 2.5, not 2.8, 2.5, we're talking 10 years ago. The selling point was that the total revamp of the interface was going to increase productivity. That's what 2.5 was all about. Now this is 2.8. You guys, to get from the promise of 2.5 to this software, which is hopelessly out of date but yet works, to get to this, from the promise to the reality, took 10 years. It took 10 years. So when everybody was talking about, I found it really funny when 2.8 was coming, what was the rhetoric? The rhetoric was the changes to the interface are gonna make you more productive. It was literally the same story I had heard 10 years earlier that took 10 years to actually come to fruition, and it did. That's what we have here. That's literally what we have here. Blender 2.79. It works. Most of the productivity that I've experienced in the last, say, 2 to 3 weeks that's actually worked, that's actually been fun, has been doing pencil tests and ink and paint in Blender, and then doing color and backgrounds in Krita. It's been a bit of a bumpy road for the simple reason that Krita is going through some really serious growing pains right now, because 2.5 has a lot of issues. And so with one of your tools or another, this never ends. I mean, literally, it never ends. And I'm not even going to say that this is sort of endemic to the open source software space, because I don't think it is. You get the same damn thing with commercial software. It really, really is true. It's why more times than one I've been like Alan Dan, where I've said, you know what, I should just develop my own tool. So at least I know the code. So when things are acting stupid, I kind of know why, and then it's up to me if I want to fix it or not. So anyway, I think I'm gonna leave it there, because I just don't really feel like sort of starting over at the moment. But this is quite an instructive experience. You might ask, well, okay, Dave, what are you going to do? I will say this. I think if I was going to continue right now, I'll tell you what I would do. I would actually retreat to what's been working. I would say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the pencils. I'm going to do this shot of Mel. I'm going to do the pencil test here in Blender 2.79. And I'm actually going to have the fun of just creating a nice, fluid, fun pencil test. And then I'm going to ink it, bring it into Krita, do the paint, and that's that. Because I only belabor the point, you guys, because I don't think you can overemphasize the significance of what we saw happen here. You know, I took the old shot, I tried to reuse it, I tried to do the Blender 2.8 thing, and of all times for Blender 2.8 to totally mysteriously explode, today's the day. Right? Why would that happen? Well, it happened because I'm probably I'm doing combinations of things in Blender 2.8 that push the envelope a little bit. We don't always get to see this. That obviously doesn't look like Mel, but you know, when people tout the features of a tool, you don't normally get to see all the things that went wrong. So anyway, Amar, you're right. You 2 steps forward, 1 step back. By the way, we just got a knock on the door. It looks like that's UPS, so apparently there's a package that just got delivered. So I'm going to say, guys, I'm going to think about this. I'm going to think very seriously about whether I want to spend the next month doing battle with Blender 2.8, 2.9. Not that it isn't better probably to be on a later version. 2.9 is probably the most stable. It's probably the best choice, actually. But when you've been going around this block and done this dance for 25 years, you get a little jaded. You really do. And you start going, you know, I've seen this before. It's not that I won't get good work done, because I will. Because I'm always determined to, and I always find a way. Right? But you really start to, the more of this stuff you do, the more you develop an attitude of, you know, I'm going to be very careful deciding what I'm up for in terms of battling with tools that are, you know, letting me down for one reason or another. So this has been an interesting experience. Definitely. I did not expect Blender 2.8 to decide today was the day to act really bizarre. I will say this, truthfully, let me think about this for half a second. It makes Tahoma look real good. Let me put it that way. It really does. It makes Tahoma look real good. Because if there's one thing you can say about Tahoma, it is very, very stable. It's limited. Its problem has more to do with its limitations, not to do with its instability. And if you have a choice, what do you like? You know, what do you want to deal with? Most people would rather deal with instability, I think. And the reason they're willing to deal with instability is because they're so excited about the features that they kind of look the other way on the instability. But there is a point in your workflow where you just less and less are willing to deal with instability in favor of, God, give me a program that has a lot less features but freaking works. You know, that's really kind of where you land. So, with that, I will say, friends, I'll probably just delete this live stream because it looks like we didn't really get any. Yeah, Amar, I'm with you. Stability over features any day of the week. So that's that. And you guys, you know, there will be more later.